the Metroid fanbase is the most toxic fanbase in all of gaming. That's a very tough seat to fill, but you know what? I feel like the Zelda fanbase can maybe leave the throne for a little bit here and give that to the Metroid fanbase because they have me worried, with Metroid Prime 4 coming out. And looking at the past Metroid games that have been announced and released and the fan reactions to a lot of these things, the fans are toxic, I strongly believe the Metroid fanbase is one of the main reasons why the Metroid series hasn't grown into something bigger and more of a, no pun intended, prime series for Nintendo to focus on and really develop into something like a Zelda or a Mario or an Animal Crossing or Mario Kart, anything like that, So let's go over a history of Metroid and see how the Metroid fanbase has reacted. So the first Metroid was released along with Metroid 2 Return to Samus. I don't believe it really had the crazy cult following, by that time. However, following Metroid 2 Return to Samus on the Game Boy, Super Metroid came out, and I believe that is when the fans truly came out in droves. And for good reason. Super Metroid is a fantastic game, and the game's held up on this pedestal. Well, yes, it is deserved. It does not negate every other game that comes out that they shouldn't be different than that. The Metroid franchise, the series needs to develop and grow. And just because Super Metroid is a fantastic game in itself, the series needs to develop. And I think that's one of the main issues with the Metroid fan base is that they hold everything to not just the standard of Super Metroid, but everything to these conventions, the premise that they made in that one game to dictate the rest of the series going forward. That is usually something that is a terrible thing for a series and means that series will not grow and develop. Look at a game like Call of Duty. After Call of Duty Modern Warfare, those games have stuck to that same formula for so long, and look at the hate that game series gets now. Even with a game like World War II that was received pretty well, I think that's mainly because of how poorly the previous games were taken and because it went back to its roots, almost as if it was a remake. And hold that thought about it being a remake. I'm going to get back to that point later on. Next game you had was Metroid Fusion, which I believe was received pretty well. I feel like some people still didn't like some of the changes, some smaller things, but I think that was more typical just fan base kind of bickering that you'd see in almost any series. But after Metroid Fusion, quite quickly after Metroid Fusion, was Metroid Prime, which was the biggie. So this was the one where you're converting a 2D side-scrolling action-adventure game of Metroid to a 3D action-adventure first-person shooter game, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Back in the day, switching anything from 2D to 3D, as you saw with, say, Mario 64, this is a biggie, and giving it to an unknown developer at Retro Studios, this was something big. And I remember there's a ton of backlash at the start for this. Thankfully, over time, people came to understand, it might not have been as long as some of the other games, but people come to understand that Metroid Prime is a fucking awesome game. And so that's good to see. This one wasn't as crazy as it could have been with Metroid fans, but I think it's just a testament to how fantastic Metroid Prime was and how revolutionary it was on the GameCube. So Metroid Prime 2 Echoes came out. A little bit of trepidation, I guess, against that, but I think it was still pretty positively received. Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime Hunters, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. So this is probably the heyday of the Metroid series. All of these games coming out, within, I believe, 5 or 6 years of each other. And, a lot of fantastic games there. A remake of the original Metroid Zero Mission, which is really cool to see. A spin-off in Pinball, which, because you have so many other games coming out, wasn't as much of a concern. Metroid Prime Hunters, which did receive some backlash, I think. But I don't remember too much about that. And Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, which received some backlash as well. But mainly because some of the changes throughout the game, which I feel like are needed in a series that is long-running, like the Metroid Prime series was. And this is kind of going to lead into what I want to talk about with Metroid Prime 4, but let's get on to that later on here as well. Let's talk about this first game, Metroid Prime Trilogy. That game came out on the Wii. Fantastic. The 3 games for the $160 price with, actually I believe it was $50 on the Wii back then, which is insane. Comes with the collector's steelbook case, with the art book, everything. This was incredible and perfect for a series like this. But the other Wii game comes out, Metroid Other M. Disclaimer, people, this game is fucking good. It is a good game. In my opinion, a great game. One of the best games on the Wii. Seriously. I know it's subjective, but anyone who says otherwise, you're fucking dumb. No, but seriously though, this game is fucking good. People complain, people want to complain, they just want to push, and this is where the Metroid fanbase really gets fucking terrible. What they go about here is because it's this change, it switches up things a little bit here, all of a sudden now, oh, the story is fucking awful, I hate this game. Since fucking when has the Metroid Prime series ever had a story that people actually really give a fuck about? They care about the characters, which it had in there, and that's pretty much it. I get that some people didn't like how Samus was kind of acting around Adam and all that kind of stuff. But this is a fucking Metroid game, people. It's not like that was complete blasphemy. It kind of corresponds to some of her character in the previous games. But the actual game, the gameplay is fucking fun and innovative. People needed to fucking calm down with this because this is the main reason why the Metroid series was not revisited again for many, many years. And that's because of the Metroid fanbase. This switched things up, this changed things, made it better gameplay-wise, in my opinion, than the 2D Metroids. And it had the innovation with the, going to first-person view for puzzle-solving aspects. But now it has the stigma of being a terrible Metroid game. Everyone wants to piggyback onto that, and that's just something people say without actually thinking about the game. Anyway, that is where the Metroid fanbase really kind of jumped everywhere and just kind of went crazy. So after that, there's a long, long hiatus. This is where I think Nintendo kind of had a bad go here. I think they were kind of in a bad situation with the Wii U and the 3DS anyway, with the 3DS doing really well and the Wii U doing very poorly. But they did come out with Metroid Prime Federation Force. Yeah, it's definitely a bit tone deaf on Nintendo's part. The complete change after the hiatus was not a great idea. Putting it on 3DS when everyone wants the next big Metroid game, that's a little odd. Having it multiplayer centric. People are expecting more of a return to form. That would have been great for maybe a remake or something. We'll see. That might have been good for something like that, but no, they don't get that. And I think the big killer was them announcing it with Blast Ball. First off, you have these chibi-looking things that don't look like it, so I get Metroid fans not liking it, but then they announce it with Blast Ball, don't give the name. It was terrible, terrible marketing, and hopefully Nintendo's learned from it. The game itself, though, was not bad. And this is, again, where the Metroid fans just blatantly don't even look at what the game is. If it's different than Super Metroid or the Metroid Prime that they know. Metroid Prime 3 is a little bit different because it holds the Prime name, but people also didn't like it because they went to different worlds. They had Marines. It wasn't you shipwrecked on a planet or whatever it is. This is where the Metroid fans didn't care about it being a good game. They cared about it being a game like Super Metroid or the original Metroid Prime. This is where they are super toxic and they will never let the game series grow. Again, not judging the game on its merits from a renowned developer too, Next Level Games. The game was not bad, people. It was a good game. I enjoyed it. Anyway, kind of what I was bringing up with Metroid Prime Federation Force, how it was bad timing. After a long hiatus like that, what would have been perfect, a remake. That's what would have been a good thing to reintroduce the Metroid series to the fans, and that's what they did with Metroid Samus Returns. Again, there was some hate at the start because of the developer, but that has nothing to do with Metroid. But yeah, I remember people trying to shit on it, whatever it is. There are people trying to say, hey, this isn't Super Metroid. Super Metroid's much better than this. Fuck off with the nostalgia glasses, people. Seriously. I get it is entirely subjective, but here's an example. I played Metroid Samus Returns before I played Super Metroid. I played Super Metroid on my new Nintendo 3DS after I played Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS, and I enjoyed Samus Returns more. That's just what it is. This is from a person who did not play Super Metroid beforehand. I did like the art from Super Metroid more, but the actual game, how it was put together, in my opinion, Samus Returns is better. So trying to say that just writing off Samus Returns as a nothing because it's not Super Metroid is stupid. And I know it's not everybody doing that, but and there's actually quite a lot of Metroid fans that are backing and really liked Samus Returns, but there are still some out there, and that's the toxicity that I hope doesn't drag over into Metroid Prime 4. So this part isn't based on facts, there's no sources here, but it feels like a lot of Metroid fans don't actually buy the games. You know, the series itself has not performed as well as it seems to with the vocal minority. And I do feel like a lot of Metroid fans are not buying the new games, as clear with Federation Force for sure, even yes with Samus Returns. They do not buy the games if it's not the original Super Metroid or anything like that, you know? And that is a terrible thing to see, because again, that is another thing that money talks, and if the games aren't selling, changes to Metroid aren't going to happen. They will re-release, maybe they'll make a game that really tries to cater to this vocal minority, this toxic fan base, but that's not a good thing to do. That'll hold back the whole series and not make it anything better or bigger than it already was. But yeah, getting to Metroid Prime 4. When Metroid Prime 4 comes out, it is going to be something unique. It is going to be something special. It will be different than the Metroid Prime trilogy. It is not from the same developer. I'm sure they have some sort of discussion about where they thought they would go with the series, but it's not from the same developers. It will not be the same as Metroid Prime trilogy, and it shouldn't be. Those games can stay by themselves as classics, whatever you want to call them, but leave those as they are and let Metroid Prime 4 have a chance. It needs to do something different. And how I feel is these nostalgic little crybabies are freaking out whenever there is a change. You guys, this can't happen for Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 needs to be something new, and who knows, maybe with Metroid Prime 4 they're going to try to bring in a new audience, maybe have multiplayer included, make this a new trilogy, who knows, but they need to have a fair shot here. This is not meant to be the same as Metroid Prime 1, and it won't be, and it shouldn't be, and I hope to God it isn't. It needs to be something new, something different, but with the Metroid Prime name, and likely as a first-person adventure game. There's lots of new things they can do with the Switch, with new hardware. You guys are the bane to gaming if this is how you're really feeling, and this is how you're pushing the Metroid Prime series, and this is a reason why games like Call of Duty do so well, so fuck off. Anyways, guys, those are my thoughts about the Metroid Prime, just the Metroid fans in general and how toxic they are. And really, this can be applied to a ton of people in Nintendo game communities, like Zelda, like Mario. A lot of games like this can, and their fans can be kind of incorporated something like this, but I really do feel like Metroid is getting hindered so badly by its fans that this needs to change and this needs to stop. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave comments, let me know what you guys think about this. Am I going a little bit too doom and gloom here, or is this you think I'm a little bit sound with my arguments here? So please let me know, and I will see you guys next time.